Welcome back to the Boss Responses podcast, where we talk about real challenges faced by freelance business owners. Today we're discussing a situation that might resonate with many of you out there: the tightrope walk between maintaining a steady, profitable output and preserving your creative energy and content quality. It's a balancing act that can leave even the most experienced writers feeling stretched thin. So whether you're a seasoned content writer feeling the strain of constant deadlines, or if you're just starting out and want to establish healthy work practices, this episode is for you. If you're a freelancer, business owner, or anyone who deals with clients, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Treasa Edmond. I've been dealing with clients and running my business for nearly 2 decades. And in that time, I've dealt with my share of doubt, imposter syndrome, and not knowing what to say when a client asks a question I wasn't ready for. I created this podcast to empower you with the boss responses you need to grow your business. Each week, my guest co-host and I will bring you 5 episodes packed with practical insights. Monday through Thursday, we answer your questions. And Fridays, we dive deep to explore how our co-hosts embraced their role as the boss of their business. Welcome to Boss Responses. We are back for day 2 with Jessica Walrack. And Jessica, I'm asking you the question today. This says, I'm a content writer and the type of content I write is on the lower side of the pricing spectrum, but it has high volume, so I'm doing pretty well financially. Lately, the back-to-back deadlines have been getting to me, though. I'm trying to figure out how much I can reasonably accomplish in a day without suffering from creativity burnout. I know I can't just write for 8 hours a day. Quality still matters, so I don't want to write crappy content. How can I figure out what my limits are without testing them until I crack? I'm really interested in your response because I know you kind of specialize in capacity stuff here.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I learned my limits the hard way, to be honest. I did work until I felt burnt out.
Me too.
But over the years, I've learned to spot the early signs and just really pay attention to how I'm feeling throughout projects. Like after I'm done with any assignment, I analyze how long it took me, how that breaks down per hour and per word in terms of the payment. And then I write down notes on how I felt about the project, things that I liked, things that I didn't like. And that might include, I felt like this took way too much time for what it was worth. Maybe there was an aspect to it that was super time intensive that I would charge more for in the future. And just really gauging how I feel. I think that's really important. And then drawing those boundaries, like paying attention to that and then putting it into action in how you schedule things. And that really helps. So if I write for 8 hours a day one day, the next day I need 3 hours or 4 hours. My average I've learned over time is kind of like 5 hours before sentences start to look weird. I'm like looking up words, like, is this a word? I'm like, okay, I gotta close my computer and take a break.
When I can't spell simple words or when I think they start looking wrong, I know I've reached my limit. Yeah, I'm like you. I found my limits the hard way. I love your idea of doing a recap at the end of a project. And just, how did you come up with that?
I think it was really from having things happen on projects that I really didn't like is where it started. And I just learned to optimize my roster and find my ideal clients and have a business that I actually enjoy and don't feel imprisoned by. Like I have to pay really close attention to what I actually like and don't like. So when something went really wrong, I'm like, I never want this to happen again. I don't want to experience this ever again. And so I just started taking notes, and then over time, it just became a habit.
That's brilliant. And that's not something I've done. And I think I'm going to actually start. I think I've done it informally, but I've never made it a formal process. And I think that's a formal process that would really help a lot of us.
A lot. And at first I was the same too. It was like, I didn't like that. I'll remember for sure next time. But then there's so many things. It's hard to keep track of it all.
Yeah. And I think we overestimate our ability to keep track of all of that. And I think it's an unreasonable expectation to expect us to do that because you have a lot of things going on. All of us do. And it's not good to do that. With the creativity burnout, I could never write for 8 hours a day. So if you can do that, you are a super woman. I'm impressed.
Once in a while.
And maybe it's the type of writing I do. but I can go 4 or 5 hours a day, and that's my limit. And I never schedule more than 5 hours a day for writing. I do always block out time right before the deadline for the procrastination writing, because that seems to work really well for me. Is it really procrastination if you scheduled it?
How to plan.
We'll have to look at that. But because quality does matter, I know what it takes for me to write quality content. Yeah. So I think in this case, instead of trying to figure out what my limits are, I would just be very diligent in carving out the time to make sure that I can do the quality writing. If quality writing requires me to have a quiet location and a specific candle burning and dim lighting, whatever it is, then I would make sure that I have the ability to set that mood to do it. I'm actually the opposite. When I'm doing ghostwriting and I'm chugging out a chapter at the last minute for a client, not that I would ever do that. I do all my writing with a lot of time and thought, but I go to a coffee shop where I can ignore people. So I've discovered that I need to ignore something to write really well. If I'm stuck at home or at the office writing, I put on British murder mysteries that I've already watched like 100 times because there's all the noise in the background, but I set the mood. And for me, that's how I avoid burnout. Not that it doesn't still happen. I think it's really important to point out that burnout is seldom permanent.
Yeah.
So it can happen. And if you do need to test your limits by getting to that point, then do it. But just realize that you need to do some self-care to get over it and then get back in the saddle and do your thing. This is one of those situations I want to point out to people. You are an employee of your business. And I know a lot of freelancers are not buying into that, and they should. You're running a business and you are your business's employee. So one of the ways to figure out on the limits especially is, would you require an employee to do this? Would it be fair if you had another employee and you asked them to do this thing? If not, then don't hold yourself to that standard. I'm just pretty hard and fast on that. And that's the question I constantly ask myself. Would I lob this on an employee last minute and expect them to do really great work? And if not, then I'm not going to require that of myself either.
Yeah. But, and if you're starting to feel that pressure, like she says, lately, the back-to-back deadlines have been getting to me, though. To me, that's a sign. That's one of those little warning signs. Okay, something needs to change. Maybe you need to start looking for a client that's similar work but pays a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know? And then once you get into that position, it's like you feel that relief and you can feel like, okay, now I have more creative juice. I don't feel that pressure or that scarcity. Like, I got to get this. Sometimes those little things are just the signs. Okay, it's time to look for something a little bit more profitable.
Yeah. And margins are important. You need to make sure that you have enough margin. And I'm a huge believer in, I want to say this without sounding like a ladder climber, but really moving up in quality on both my clients, the pay scale, and the work that I'm doing. And if I want to constantly be improving, eventually you'll reach a pinnacle. I haven't yet. I've been doing this for 20 years. You can do it for a long time and take baby steps if you want. But I really think it's important to consistently move up. The people that you work with when you very first start freelancing are not the people you should be working with a couple of years later or 10 years later or 20 years later. No matter how much you like them, no matter how much you like the work, you should constantly be moving forward with your business because you owe that to your business. You just have to do that. That's a complicated topic. It is a complicated topic. And burnout is a real thing. We didn't even really talk about that, but burnout is a real thing. And you do not want to consistently push yourself to the point of burnout. Because if you do it over and over again, then you will absolutely end up hating your business. And I don't think any of us do what we do because we want to end up hating.
Yeah. And I think that's the natural flow of what happens. When people start, they take as much work as they can. They're like, I can work anytime. The more I can work, the more money I can make. And you just like go, 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 go. Once you don't have an employer saying, okay, clock out if you're completely new to this. I think that it's natural to kind of get to that place. But yeah, definitely not somewhere you want to stay. It can really take a toll on your health.
And all of your health, your mental and your physical health, for sure. Boundaries are not for other people, they're for yourself. So it's, even if you're setting a boundary with a client, you're setting the boundary to gauge how you're going to react if they cross it. You need to do those same things with you for your business. So your business can only require so much from you before you cross a boundary. If you cross the boundary, how are you going to react to that? I think that's one of the most important aspects of not getting burnout is I have these boundaries. I'm not going to cross them. If I do, bad consequences. So what do? Do you have to get rid of a client? Do you have to not take the next project because you need a couple of weeks to recuperate? Whatever it takes, and build your business so that you can get to that point. And maybe just don't get to that point at some point. But yes, those are all really important. That's day 2. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about a topic that I read about a lot on social, having problems finding new clients. So join us tomorrow for day 3 with Jessica.